Steve Hageman from Washburn University Center for Student Success. And we're all right now in the process of navigating that shift from in-person face-to-face classes and actually going to a physical university location, and that shift to virtual online classes. And so what I wanted to talk about today for a few minutes was trying to treat those online classes in some of the same kinds of ways that you would treat your regular and in-person face-to-face classes, and the experience of going to the university every day. Now you're not be able to do that, but to try to recreate some of that structure and some of that organization that you would regularly have when you're doing your regular face-to-face classes. So I think the first thing I would say is that as much as possible, try to keep the same kind of schedule that you had before, right? So getting up, having a healthy breakfast, taking a shower, getting ready to go to school, right? You're not going to go to school, but you're preparing yourself to kind of enter that kind of mindset and that kind of framework. Right. I'm not saying you have to dress up, right? You can still wear comfy pants. I mean, heck, I'm wearing comfy pants right now. But if you're getting yourself into that framework, into that mindset of I'm getting ready to do classes, that would be very, very helpful for you. If you can keep the same kind of schedule, right? So that you get up, you go to the university, you take a particular class, and you study between class, and you take another class, and you study between those classes, right? If you can keep that same kind of schedule, I think that would be very, very beneficial to you. Now, I know for lots of people, that's not going to be a possibility, whether it's new childcare responsibilities or new work shifts that you have to take on. It may be difficult to do that, but if you can, try to keep some of the same organizational structure that you had throughout the course of the day before in your new kind of online experience. So in terms of the classes themselves, if you are having virtual classes like Zoom meetings, that may make it a little bit easier to kind of recreate that experience, right? But you should treat those Zoom classes the same kinds of ways you would hopefully treated your regular classes. So if there's reading beforehand, right? If you have an assignment to read something before you go into that Zoom class, do that reading, right? If you've done that reading and then you go into class, your professor is going to be lecturing and talking about stuff, you've already thought about some of those things. You've thought about some of the ideas, you've begun to process it. You're going to have that kind of experience be much more beneficial to you if you've already begun to think about some of those ideas, right? If you have questions, continue to ask questions, right? A regular face-to-face class, if you don't understand something, we ask questions, right? Continue to ask questions, right? Whether it is in a virtual Zoom meeting type classroom situation, or if it's not in that kind of format, via email, right? Ask questions of your professors if you have questions about the material, right? You would do that in a regular class. Please do that in your online face-to-face classes, right? So prepare for class, do the reading, come prepared to ask questions, do all of that stuff before you actually go to class. Take notes, right? If you have those virtual Zoom meetings, when you're meeting as a class, do what you would hopefully do in a regular class and take notes. And I'm not going to tell you exactly which kind of note-taking style you should use. That might be a little bit different for you. It may be different for what kind of subject you're taking. There's all kinds of great sites out there on the web about particular note-taking styles. But I think the most important thing is that you do take notes, and you do take notes throughout the entirety of the class. Taking notes is going to keep you more actively engaged with the material. It's going to make it less likely that you zone out. It's going to keep you on task much more, right? So just like hopefully you would do in a regular classroom, continue to take notes in those Zoom meetings. Study with classmates if you can, maybe even more so now, getting together with people in the class virtually at least, right? You can set up your own Zoom meetings with study groups. That's not for everybody, obviously, but I think for lots of people, even more so now, that kind of connection to other people and relying upon other people can be very, very useful for you. So reach out to your fellow classmates, create some of those study groups, create some of those Zoom meetings if you can. If you're not meeting in those face-to-face classes, if your professor has put everything kind of online, but not having those kind of Zoom type meetings, Again, try to treat those as you would a regular class, right? Set aside a particular the time that you would have class each day to work on that class, right? And the time that you would have set aside to study for that class, continue to try to study at that same time, even though you may not be doing it in the same physical space, right? So as much as possible, try to keep those same kind of structures, the same kind of good practices that you would have in your regular classes, try to keep those in your online classes. And then finally, and I think maybe most importantly, both for your regular classes, but maybe particular for online classes, is please, please, please try to keep the lines of communication open with your professor, right? If you do that, right, your professor can work with you and kind of help make sure that you're as successful as you possibly can be. The worst thing you can kind of do is just kind of disappear and not check in, right? If you do that, it becomes very hard for your professor to kind of work with you to kind of help make sure you're able to finish the semester successfully. So now more than ever, I think it's necessary to be in contact with your professors. If you don't have those regular Zoom classes, that's okay, but you need to be able to kind of keep those lines of communication open. If you miss an assignment, don't just disappear, right? Write to your professor, say, this is why I missed the assignment. Can I make it up, right? More than ever, we need to keep those lines of communication open between yourselves and the professors. So hopefully this has provided a few tips for trying to treat your online classes like your regular face-to-face classes. It's not a perfect experience. It's a transition for all of us. But if you can try to kind of treat your online classes and your online educational experience in some of the same kind of ways as you would treat your regular face-to-face classes in the experience of going to the university, I think you can make this as successful as you possibly can for the rest of the semester. Have a good day.